grateful and honored that you joined me again today. And I hope that you find this show as exciting and enlightening and as inspirational as all the others. And today's show will not disappoint you. You know, from time to time, I like to share people's stories because I find that when I'm watching television and there are other people out there just like me who are going through what I've gone through or experienced something that maybe someone I know has experienced, and I sit down and I hear their story, it makes me feel like I'm not the only one out here, that I am not the only one going through what I'm going through. It's like, you know, that connection. And it's so funny because God, He said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. So right there in that moment, when God is speaking to us, He always sends someone at the right time to say just the right thing into our spirit, and it prompts us, and it gives us revelation, and it just illuminates and gives us answers. And that's what this show is about today. And I just want to share with you someone that I've met in my travels who has written an awesome book, and her name is Jean Marie Prince.
Thank you.
Hi, Jean.
Thank you.
Jean, I met because we both have a show on this network, and it's funny when you hear someone's story, it just opens you up and go, wow, you know, and then how they are victorious in everything that they do. Everything that they put their heart and mind to do, they overcome. And how God's hand has always been on her life from day one. And I'm so excited to share her with you, and that she can share her story and some of her accomplishments with you as well. So help me in welcoming Jean Marie Prince.
Thanks, Yolanda, for having me as a guest on your show. Appreciate it.
Yes. Now, Jean.
Yes.
You have a talk show.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. You are an author. Mm-hmm. You are a singer.
Well, amateur singer.
No. We're not accepting that.
Okay, well.
Okay, because
you
God's
may accept it after
hand.
you hear it, though.
No, I've heard it, and it's great. God's hand is definitely on your life, you know, and it's awesome when you can see the fruit in someone's life, you know, and then also it's awesome to meet someone who, you know, when God speaks to them, they're like, okay, you know, all right, God, I'm going to go for it. And then He just shows you while you're doing it what He has put in you, you know, and that's amazing. Very few people answer the call, and you're one of the few who has answered the call that was on your life. So why don't we start from the beginning?
Okay, I guess the beginning would be when I was born.
Yes.
Okay. So when I was born, I was found 2 days old in a public bathroom in Seoul, Korea. Okay, and you know, I used to think left to die, but God had a better plan, and He had a stranger who possibly was an angel, you know, find me, and as far as I know, I was brought to an orphanage, Holt Orphanage, and it was actually a Christian orphanage. So, you know, so maybe that was the start of the blessings that God was giving me. And, you know, so I lived there for 5 years. And then I was adopted to an American family. I always say Irish mother, Italian father, and 4 instant brothers. You know, so it's been an amazing journey. And, you know, I guess even growing up sometimes throughout my life, I always thought to myself, why was I saved? What was my purpose? And now, at the age of, I would have to say, I mean, I just turned 50, but besides the fact that this is about 5 years ago or 4 years ago, you know, God had told me to write the book, you know, as I'm walking in the parking lot in the fall of 2010, and all of a sudden I heard, do the book. And I was like, you're right, that makes sense. And I took a huge leap of faith, knowing I have no college education, didn't have any formal writing experience. But I believed in God, and I trusted in God, and I just did what I heard, and I'm so grateful that I ended up taking that leap of faith instead of letting fear block me. And So it's been an amazing journey. I mean, you know, to think the fact that you were giving the credits of what I've accomplished, but it isn't me. It's through the power of God. That's the only way that
Yes.
it's possible.
And that's what it is. It's obedience. Because we were all born with a gift, and the gift is the power. So when you're obedient, you see it. You see the anointing. You know what I'm saying? You see the power, you see the authority, you see it just unfold right before your very eyes. And also, and obedience. I keep going back to obedience because that's what it is. It's challenging to say, okay, God called me to do this, but I don't see myself in that place. And God is constantly, like he told you, in the parking lot, write that book.
Right.
You know, write the book.
Right.
But take us back to when you were a little girl, you said 5, and you were the only girl in your household. Were they Christians as well?
Yeah, they grew up Catholic. You know, so I also was raised Catholic as well.
Okay.
Okay. But as time went on, I really feel that I believed in God because I was told to believe in God. It was, you know, every, you know, Saturday at 5 o'clock. You know, we were in church and things like that, but my mother always made sure, like, kind of like a half hour. That's it. We're out of there.
Okay.
You know, so it was more like a duty,
Yes.
rather than, you know, a devotion.
Right.
And so, you know, but my faith definitely changed. And so throughout my book, I take 4 themes in the book. The first theme being how God had blessed me to be an inspirational writer. And, you know, the story in the book starts out in 1998. I was laying in bed with my kids one morning, and all of a sudden I started singing. And I was like, hey, let me write down what I'm singing. So that morning I wrote down little 5 short prayer songs. But little did I know that that really was the birth of Inspired Blessings, because that's really when it all started. And so God had blessed me with over 100 inspirations, sometimes 10:30 at night, and all of a sudden I'm like, now? But he was so gracious to me because these inspirations, they average about 20 lines, but yet it was written an average of a half hour to an hour.
Wow.
You know? So it was definitely a God thing. And
Wait, what made you decide to write them down? I mean, because you're sharing with your children, sometimes you just share.
Well, you know, it's funny because I used to sing, you know, just with the kids or whatever, and you make up words.
Right.
Well, for some reason that particular morning, I guess God had planned and orchestrated that now it was finally that I was supposed to start writing down.
Yes.
So the first 2 years, I actually would carry a tape recorder with me.
Wow.
Because these inspirations would come out with melodies. You know, so I'm blessed the fact that I'm able to carry a tune, you know, I can carry a melody, because if I wasn't able to, right now I'm in the process of producing my first Inspired Blessings album, and it's going to have 10 songs on it. So the gentleman who's helping me produce this, you know, is basically, he was saying, G. Marie, you know, I'd like you to sing one of these songs. I was like, yeah, and I laughed at him first, you know, and I was like, you're kidding me, right? He goes, no, he goes, I think you can pull it off. You know? So I was like, really? So anyway, you know, he said the thing is, you can carry a melody, you can carry a tune. Most people can't do that. Right. You know, and so if I wasn't able to do that, the other 9 songs that are going to be produced wouldn't be able to really come about, because what it is that I was able to, you know, sing it to the different people that would be playing the different instruments, so they knew how to, you know, record the melody, and also for the person who's actually singing these songs as well. So it's just amazing that the different gifts that God has given me, and but the fact that, you know, I said, hey, what the heck? Check it off my bucket list.
That's right. That's right.
That I sang a song on my album.
Right. That's right. So now you started off with the book, and in the book you share your life, but also, and through your life, also you shared like things that spoke to your heart that are that would be inspirational to others, with dealing with love, relationships, abortion, right?
Yeah.
So tell me a little about that.
Well, I used to, in 1998, like I said, when the first inspirations, when I was writing down that morning with my kids, then God started to bless me with, you know, all these inspirations. And so it turned out that I actually had 5 inspirations, and I ended up saying, hey, you know, I think this would make nice Christmas gifts. I ended up going to a couple of different Christian stores and asking them what they thought, and they're like, okay, well, how much? I'm like, what, you know? So that's really when I started, because I needed confirmation, because I felt like, you know what, I made them into Christmas gifts, and then I said, you know, let me see if this is my crazy mind to think this is something, or if this is God's will. So I took these inspirations, framed and all, and took them to one of the largest Christian bookstores that was out east. And so it turned out that the owner, and I told them actually that these actually were inspirations, came out of songs, and she was like, oh, you should have like a little, you know, single, you know, with the tape, you know, put with these. And I'm like, really? Well, how about, you know, but anyway, so it turned out the fact that she asked me how much, and again, I wasn't sure, because it was just, I just wanted her opinion. Then it turned out that I decided to go to 3 or 4 other places just to reconfirm what I was thinking. And so then that's when it started. So I actually, at one point, I had over 60 stores that used to sell these inspirations, and they were going as far as like Wisconsin and things like that.
Wow.
So within like, probably from like a 1999 to a 2000, 2001, and then September 11th happened.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the stores were just really struggling, so then I kind of put things on hold. So now, you know, people can be, and they just really make nice gifts.
But I would think that during...
You would have thought, but the stores, like, I mean, especially the one big store, you know, because most of my places were in New York, okay? And so they were just struggling just to sell the Christmas items, that they even had to return the Christmas items before Christmas even came around.
Oh, wow.
So I just, you know, so I just decided to not really, you know, pursue it, and just kind of, you know, then try to go sell it on my website.
Because, you know, and that's what, I was about to say one thing, but you know what? That's a time when a lot of people started going to the churches, you know, running to the church, because it's like, you know, okay, God, help us through this, and, you know, bring it out. But during that time also, God led you to not just stay there with those books, it moved you into you having your website and promoting it through the website, which is not a bad thing, you know? I would have thought, you know, the bookstore, but, you know, God orders our steps. And as I'm hearing your story, that just confirms it. He orders our steps. So when in your obedience, you're following the path that he has for you, and opportunity is there, doors are open. And then when he closes a door, he already has that door open. It's just that you're looking this way at the door, the first door. So when he closes that, so many people stay there looking at that closed door. But at least you knew to turn around and see the next thing, which is, you know, your website, and promoting it more from there.
Well, you know what? When God told me to do the book, I actually went on to my first social media, okay, which was the YouTube, and it was really probably about, I'm going to say, 2-minute, 3-minute YouTube, and it just letting people know God told me to do this book, so please follow me along this journey. And that was my first YouTube. Well, as of now, I'd have to say I have about 70 YouTubes. And,
awesome.
And you're talking about, you get to see the whole progression of the process of the steps of the development of the book. Awesome. I say to people, first read the book, then look at this after as you know, more of a, just to see how it came about.
Wow.
And because on there you also see the different speaking engagements, as well as the different events that I've done, and now I put my TV shows on there. So Inspired Blessings with Junior Prince, that people, you know, can be able to watch if they weren't able to watch it on the TV, which airs now 13 times, you know, from Nassau all the way to Shelter Island. So it's an amazing journey that God has, you know, given me. And, you know, and also to put all my credits there is that I'm not a photographer, but the book cover, I took that picture in Mexico. And all the inspirational prints that you see on my website are my original pictures that I took with my with my inspirations. So so it's just amazing that God really does provide the way, even when you don't feel that it's possible. And in my first book, my first page of my book says, "With man, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible."
Funny you said your first book.
Well, no, my first page.
No.
No.
But you said it. You know. You might be prophesying.
No,
You said
I
my
meant to
first
say,
book.
Right, no, but I meant to say the first
Because now there will be another one.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So,
well, talking about prophecy is that when these inspirations first came out, and I actually then had this lady who has the gift of prophecy, and I talk about this in my book, is that you know, she ended up, I said to her, I said, Linda, what do you think? And she's reading the first one, the second one, and all of a sudden she goes, Jimmy, I got this vision. I'm like, what? She goes, you're going to be writing a book, you're going to be doing some kind of movie, and you're going to be speaking at different places.
Wow.
And I laughed at her. I said, what, are you kidding me? Just like the fact that, you know, yeah, sing a song, you know.
Right.
And so it was just funny in the fact that now you got to figure 14 years later, because our church had closed and things like that, so I wasn't in contact with her like I used to be. And I actually happened to call her one day and I said, hey Linda. Actually, the next day, I said, Linda, for some reason I feel like I'm supposed to call you, but God told me to do the book. And she goes, Gina, you're not going to believe this. I said, what? She goes, just yesterday, you know how I always tell you that I read your inspirations every day as prayers, and you have given me 3 over time? And I said, yes. She goes, just as I read the last one, I said to God, I said, God, I don't understand. You gave me this prophecy, nothing ever became of it. You know, I don't understand whatever happened. Mm-hmm. Next day, hey, Linda, I feel like God wanted me to tell you. He told me to do the book. Is that not a confirmation?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Even giving me the name of the company, Inspired Blessings, because when I was thinking of, you know, coming up with the name, if I was going to be selling the prints and things like that, I'm calling my girlfriend Barbara, what do you think of True Blessings? She's like, yeah, that sounds good. I'm like, still not sure. So I'm stepping in the shower, and I'm like, God, what should I name it? The next thing, with feeling it sound from the middle of the chest and out of my mouth, comes Inspired Blessings. And I was like, you're right, that's perfect. Amen. So there's been many, you know, different things that God has really orchestrated. And even with just doing the TV show, as you know, the technical problems. Boy, did I have technical problems, you know? Mm-hmm. But what this book mainly is to give people hope. I
wanted to speak about, how did you find the 14 people?
Just
these are people you knew, or you randomly?
Some of them I didn't know, but you know, I was very involved in networking when I was promoting other, you know, my side jobs or things like that. And so I was kind of sharing that God told me to write this book, and all of a sudden they start sharing their story. And I was like, you know what, that sounds like a really good story. Mm-hmm. It sounds like it would give people hope and things like that, and you know, they had faith in God. And so I decided to come across that. And there's a really, one story that was really, I thought it was a great story to read, and it's Eleanor Spring. Mm-hmm. And so I actually happened to put out on, you know, on Facebook that I'm writing this, you know, God told me to write this book, and does anybody have any stories that they'd like to share of their own personal testimonies? And I met with her, and she was, at first, she said she was nervous to reach out to me, but then she's like, you know, but I really want to share what God has done in my life. And so it's just amazing that, you know, what a blessing that story is. You know, so different circumstances, different situations.
So what was her story?
Well, basically what it is the fact that she was in a marriage that was very tough to be married. You know, when you got a husband who's into drugs and alcohol and things like that, addicted to things. Yes. And instead of providing for the family, he's taken the meat that was in the freezer to sell it so he can buy his, you know, addiction. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she had either 2 or 3 children, mm-hmm. and trying to provide for them. And wow. So she was really like questioning whether or not God even existed. Mm-hmm. And so through her questioning and praying, God ends up giving her a dream. Mm. And so, yeah, very interesting dream. Mm. And how it comes about and stuff like that. So even at one point when she's like saying, God, how am I going to be able to feed my kids? And the next thing she, and this wasn't the dream, but you know, this actually had happened, was that there was this grocery store that was on fire. So instead of throwing the food out, somebody knew about her, mm-hmm. and called her and said, we have, you know, food that you can be able to get from this grocery food, wow. you know, from this fire. And so they helped her. And so her pantry was empty and it was overfilled.
Wow.
Yeah.
You see that?
Yeah. See how God provided for her?
And did that like awaken something in her?
Yeah, well, what happened was the dream that God gave her actually ended up coming true. You know, so
Well, yeah, any dream he does give you comes true.
yeah. So you know, so I'd like people to kind of read on how that came about. I thought that was very interesting.
Okay, wow.
Yep.
And what are some of the other stories?
Well, for instance, is I do write about volunteer firemen, and the way I got his story was I was going around to the different fire departments to see if they had a story about September 11th, you know, and what happened was they said, you know what, there was a story about this gentleman, Robert Weisberg, and he was actually in Newsday, and him and another EMT had saved over 40 people on September 11th. So I, you know, was able to somehow reach out to him, and I said to him, hey, I said, you know, God told me to write this book. I said, please check out my website. And at the time, my website, you know, G-Marie was inspiredblessings.com, which now transfers to gmarieprince.com. And, you know, but it wasn't professional looking. But anyway, he saw what my story was about, and he said, yeah, he said, I would like to share, you know, share my story. So then I met with him, and his stories are very action-packed. So I go into explaining in the fact that how on September 11th, what, you know, what happened in my life, you know, seeing the disaster and the destruction and things like that.
Wow.
And, you know, God had blessed me to write an inspiration called Tragedy in Our Nation. After September 11th, a couple of weeks after. So actually, I ended up doing a street fair, and so I had it there, and I also, you know, wrote Our Firemen, things like that. But I had, I believe he was a police officer or fireman, and he bought it because he wanted to have something as a memory. Same thing with the grandmother who bought it for the grandson. And then there was also somebody who worked for the news. You know, he was. And so they had bought it. So it's just, you know, because people want to not forget what happened, but yet to see, you know, that the future can be better if we trust and put our faith in God.
So was this an easy road? Like, okay, so now you're sharing your story, which is very easy to do in sharing our story, you know, depending on, you know, how vulnerable, transparent you want to be. And then you decide, okay,
well,
you know, you get
I almost
this
died
vision.
too. I almost died when it came over from America. I mean, from Korea.
Really?
Within the first week, I almost died. You know.
Why?
So,
What happened?
Well, let people read it. I always hate to give away the story.
Okay.
Yeah.
So so now you are, say, a teenager.
Challenges. I talk about.
Your challenges as a teenager,
Yep.
or
You don't need to be of different color. You just need to be the minority to be made fun of. So when you're talking about the fact that I was in elementary, not so much elementary school, but it was more like junior high and high school.
yeah, those are the years,
Yep.
especially
And-
junior high.
And when you're only about, I think there was only 3 Asians in the public school that I went to, and it was a big, you know, lot of kids. And so at that point,
You grew up in New York?
yep,
Okay.
Long Island.
Oh, okay.
And so what happened was, because you are different from the majority, okay, you end up being made fun of. And so I basically didn't even like to be Asian. I was actually prejudiced against my own race, okay? Also, I knew that when I would, if I ever got married, that I did not want to even marry an Asian man because I didn't want to be known as the Oriental couple. Okay, so it's a shame what people can do and how kids can be so mean to other kids, things like that, when you're different.
And because we know words are seeds, and so it stays there. And in that environment, when the child sees someone who looks different or fits the shaping, you know, fits the mold of what that seed was planted into them, then they carry that out, you know, and then they say, but now I find the bullying, I find the put down to other people that you're not familiar with is when you live in a box. When you're not exposed, when you see something that you're not used to seeing, instead of you welcoming it, you fear it. So then your fear brings out your ignorance, and it causes you to react differently based on what the seed that was planted in you, because you have people that grew up in an environment where everybody's mixed, everybody, all different kinds of cultures, all different, and that child is very open. They don't bully. They check the child's character.
Right.
And
I,
and when you and I hate to say this, but Long Islanders are in a box. They've always been in a box. They don't come out of their environment. So if something new comes into their environment, it's met with fear and ignorance.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. So if you're the minority and you're not,
But
the
you're
majority,
not the minority. Okay.
But anyway, so let's go past this conversation. If you
Yeah,
don't mind.
because you know what, minority and majority, that annoys
but,
me.
But anyway, the
Because it's
purpose of my book is also to share God's love, is to share the truth of God.
Right. But you know what is even more interesting with this book is that when you wrote this book, did it help you to love yourself more?
You know what? I wasn't writing the book for that purpose. I was writing the book for the purpose for it to share, to show others God's love. Mm-hmm.
But you can only share or show God's love if you yourself have embraced God's love.
Right. So the fact that, yes, I saw what God did in my life. I saw that He saved me both physically and spiritually, that I truly understood who He was, okay? Because like I said, being raised Catholic, sometimes you tend to just do the monotonous things of just going to church every weekend and
routine,
the routine and things like that, and really not understanding the concept of who God is. Mm-hmm. And so a girlfriend, and I talk about how a girlfriend of mine had shared that if I wanted to go to a Bible study, I said, I've always wanted to learn the Bible and things like that. And then when I used to ask a lot of questions and things like that, and all of a sudden one day it just became black and white, the truth of God. Mm-hmm. But So what I'm saying is the fact that, yes, it showed the fact that God loved me, mm-hmm. okay, to save me in that situation, but He also chose me for this purpose, mm-hmm. That I was going to be His vessel to mm-hmm. get the message out there. And again, no experience, like I said, no formal writing experience, no college education, and this book was written in 8 months. Mm-hmm. And I self-published it, and it was done a year later. So
self-publishing. Yeah. Did you find, would you self-publish again, or would you go through the traditional?
There's advantages and disadvantages. Mm-hmm. The reason why I decided to go in the self-publishing angle is because I didn't want to be told by a publishing company, sorry, but that's too religious or spiritual, however, And I also didn't want to be told in the fact that, no, that title is too long. You know what I mean? Because inspired blessings, led by God to inspire the world with love, faith, and hope. But, so there's a lot of, so really this book, the way it came out is, and I'd like to think it was God's input, because, God had guided me the way for everything, for even the position of the butterfly, even like you'll see the 4 themes that I take, and each of the 4 themes has a different color. It's the same logo, let's say, but the butterfly is a different mm-hmm, color. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if people would see that they would see that this certain butterfly would mean that I'm talking about my life, mm-hmm. And another certain different color would be representing, when I'm talking about the inspirations or individual stories, or, and the other thing as well, because it does take the 4 themes.
Butterfly, that's
mm-hmm.
your symbol.
Well, yeah, because the same Linda that I spoke to that gave me the gift of prophecy, I called her and I said, I'm thinking of a logo for Inspired Blessings. What do you think? Should it be a dove or a butterfly? And she goes, God told me a blue butterfly, and it's a very rare butterfly, and you should look it up. But He's telling me a blue butterfly, so that's what I went with, and it's perfect,
wow.
Because, and also the thing is that a butterfly, it's a new beginning. Mm-hmm.
And the blue butterfly?
Yeah, it's a rare type of butterfly. I mean, so it's just been a blessing with what God has done in my life, and how it, the testimonies of others that have read this book, and how it has given them hope. And, because sometimes you can believe when you're younger and things like that, and somehow you walk away from your faith.
Mm-hmm.
So, in some situations it brought them back to the faith.
Okay.
My thing is that people would say to me, so who is your audience? And I feel that everybody's my audience,
Right.
because it's the ones who don't believe, and it's the ones
Right.
who do believe that it'll
Right.
strengthen their
Right.
their faith and things like that.
Right.
I think testimonials are powerful.
Yes.
Yes. And that's why my show is based on testimonials.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. And so when you were sharing your life and then also putting together other people's lives, sharing their story in this book, you also wrote 5 inspired or 4 inspirational poems?
No. I wrote over 100 inspirational poems,
But I mean, for the book.
No, it's 40 in there. There's 40 in there. Okay.
40
Yeah, what
inspirational?
you're getting is when I started the first page of the story starts that I was laying in bed with my kids one morning, and all of a sudden I started singing, and I said let me write down what I'm singing. That morning I wrote down little 5 short prayer songs.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe one
In
day.
this book, you have 40?
And yeah, I have 40 that I put in there.
Okay.
And this way I list the pages that they're on, because sometimes you may need an inspiration to give you hope that day.
Mm-hmm.
And what I also try to do is I try to tie in the inspiration based on the story as well. So that's why the 4 themes are really intertwined, and it's really been a blessing. And if you think about it, just to write a book based on one character would be such a tough thing to do. But how God had me write 14 individuals, and I would be meeting with them and sitting down, and the next thing they're written. And you were saying before, how was this easy for you, that type of thing. And it's just funny, once I sat down at my laptop, my computer, it just flowed. Just flowed.
Yeah.
And then I felt like, what? I wanted to feel like I was a writer, so it was during the summertime too. And I ended up taking my laptop out there. I've been blessed with a beautiful backyard. And so I'm like, I think I'll have a glass of wine, to look like I'm a writer. I felt like I wanted to fit the image that I'm doing this.
Cool. Did you take pictures?
No. I'm sure in certain ways, but no, I don't think.
You should have took pictures of that. So, that, it's, it's God, because most people have writer's block.
Yeah. No, it's
And you didn't.
It's funny because now that I'm doing these songs, and I have professional musicians, professional singers, and they're just amazed. They're just like, wow, she's a lot better than some of the real professional singers,
Wow.
writers. And so, and it was funny because one of the singers saying, yes, I was telling her how these were just written within a half hour to an hour. And she says, I've been trying to write a song for a year and I still haven't been able to. So I know it's all God, because I just know my history when it comes to academics.
Yes.
English was my worst subject.
Yes.
Comprehension, I had a terrible problem with comprehension. So that's what I'm saying. So why did God choose me? Because if He chose somebody with a college education, with training in writing, and all this other stuff, then it would have been like, yeah, you did it. But here it's like, with no experience, no, you didn't do it. You did it with my help.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? Also, when it's God, He shows through different people, no matter who you are. Whatever I've put in you will manifest. There are people who go through the school system to be educated, and you're right. They believe that, okay, if I wrote this or I discovered this, it would be my education that got me here, and they don't realize that this educational system that we have, I'm not knocking it, but it is a Babylonian. Mm-hmm. It's a Roman Greco curriculum, and its philosophy and take on things. That's why it excludes so many cultures. But in any event, when people come through that way, it is more challenging to get them to to hear God because of the philosophies of this curriculum.
Right.
You know, and when I say Babylonian, it's without God. You know, so it is more challenging.
Right.
You know, but he can, you know, God can still talk to anyone.
Sure.
But it's not, to me, not to cut you off, but to me, it doesn't matter that you may not have gone that route. It still doesn't mean you're not relevant, you know, and that God says, I will take the wise things of this world and bring it to naught to show you how foolish it is. So by the world's standards, if you're an author, you're well versed, you speak well, you write well, you know, you have this certain aura about you. And God is saying, no, none of that means anything. I'm going to show you how someone who by your standards is not what you would think could do this, and give them abundance. Pull out what I've put in them. Give them abundance and show that your way of living is foolish.
And you just also let you know, it's the first year I decided to enter a contest, a national contest called the India Excellence Award. And so I was actually a finalist for the short stories.
Awesome.
You know, for the first year, you know, the one and only contest that I entered. So I just know that it's all God. But I also want people to know the main purpose that I did of why I wrote the book is the need for Jesus Christ in our life. Okay, the need to realize that we are sinners and that we need to receive Jesus and to be really, you know, to accept his love and what he did on the cross for us. And, you know, because I know there are some people that want to just accept Jesus just the fact that they'll know they go to heaven rather than hell, okay? But how about to live with God, to be with your Creator, you know, to know his love, to feel his love. And, you know, so I mean, I will listen to people share the testimonies of people who had near-death experience and things like that. But the thing is that, you know, there's so many people that are so deceived that don't realize that they need to really, you know, I know that people say, oh, there's so many ways to heaven, so many ways, but there isn't. Not what the Bible says. There's only one way, and that's through Jesus Christ. And that's why John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, so that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life, is so important. You know, and that's really the main purpose of really why I wrote the book, because the different story leads to, you know, what God can do and how he can change lives and things like that.
So from the book and then the inspired writings, the talk show, how did you get there?
The talk show was, somebody had said to me, hey, you know, they wanted to have me on their show. And then they said, you know, you could do your own show. I said, really? I said, how? And then they told me, you know, how you can be able to have a public access and do local media. And it's just funny because on the one hand, I'm like, I decided, I was doing book signings out of the state, and I thought to myself, the problem is that people only know me for that moment, but once I leave, then the books stay on the shelf because they don't know who I am. So I'm like, God, I decided, you know, God, I think I'm not going to go this way, you know, and I just need to get exposure. So maybe he can find a way that I could be able to be interviewed by somebody else, or a newspaper, or the TV, things like that. And it's just amazing, again, God's plan, because he knew what I was thinking, but I didn't know what he was thinking. But somehow, you know what, when that lady told me, again, it was taking that leap of faith. And I thought to myself, I always feel like I'll take a leap of faith if I feel that it's good for others. And I felt that it was good for others to hear this message. And so I took that leap of faith. I had a lot of obstacles, but again, God provides and provided the people to help me through those obstacles, which I am so thankful for, because otherwise I would never have had the show. And so it turns out that I was looking to get one air date, you know, one time slot, let's say, right? And now the fact that 13 times my show airs throughout the week, from Nassau all the way to Shelter Island.
Awesome.
And then when people can't, you know, for some reason be able to see it in their area, or they don't have the public access type of station on their station, basically then I download it to my YouTube, and then you can be able to watch the interview on
Yeah.
my YouTubes.
Yeah, and it's important to have shows like that out here because, as we know, media is huge. Media is what media shapes and molds the thinking and how people live more so than education. And that's an important platform to be in. So to be out there like that, you have to have something to share. And why not share what the Word of God has done in your life and living it? And, just also sharing other people's story who may not be able to get the chance to sit right here with you and, share their story, but at least you can do that.
Right.
Again, obedience, because God opens doors
Right.
that no man can shut.
Well, yeah, I mean, just the fact that right now I'm in the production of producing my own songs, and to think about it, I came across a big obstacle, and I didn't think that it was going to happen, but by faith, I had to let that situation go because it just wasn't right, and I'm just like, okay, God, I'll trust you and just leave it in your hands.
How did you get to music?
Well, because like I said, the first 2 years, these inspirations came out with, with melodies, and so
Right,
so I
but
would
why
record it.
now?
Why now? Because now it's God's timing, is the way I look at it. Because then what happened was when I had to let that situation go, I was thinking to myself, I'm not going to be able to find a recording company or a singer, for this one particular song, and that's how it started because I wanted to be more country and things like that, and it was going in the wrong direction. So it turns out the next day I ended up having to go to my a funeral. My neighbor's funeral. Let's say a father passed away, and I ended up meeting somebody who was there who actually had a recording company and had the capability, and it's just amazing how fast that these songs, that when I'm singing them, and how fast that they're producing it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And what I love hearing from you is just your obedience. I really do. I love hearing that because, you get to where God wants you to be a lot faster when you're obedient.
Right.
When He speaks to you and you know without a shadow of a doubt is God. That's that faith.
Right, but sometimes I've taken a leap of faith, not sure. I mean, the book, I heard, do the book. I heard, name it Inspired Blessings, you know what I'm saying? But there was other things that I've taken a leap of faith, and like I said, is that I just took a leap of faith if I felt that it was something that God would want me to do, And so then when I see, because in the end, if it didn't work out, then you realize it wasn't of God, okay? But when
Do you pray before you go out and do it?
Yeah. Yeah, prayer is very important. I pray every morning. I read the Bible
ask
every
God,
morning. Sure.
Is this His will for you?
Sure. Is that, for God to, what? I've had where God has actually put different people across my path that would say to me, I feel that this is of God and I'm going to help you. You know what I'm saying? So that I've been blessed to hear that people would feel that way and that God put it upon their heart.
Yes. God is amazing.
Oh, He is. He's
He
real.
is so amazing.
Like I think to myself sometimes, the fact that we live in a physical world, but we're really spiritual beings.
Yes, we are. Oh, wow. You could just, I'm just like savoring the moment here because it's like, when you start thinking about, just really think about your life, you go, wow, God has always been there. Even when I couldn't see Him, He was still there because He wastes nothing. Like with the 5,000, He fed them. He broke the bread and he gave it up to God. Whatever you have in your hand, you give to God. He blesses it and he multiplies it so much that there's an overflow. And then there was scraps. There was still
Right.
crumbs left.
Right.
And that represented, don't ever forget. The crumbs represent, remember what he did. And if you always remember that he's been ordering your steps and carrying you through and never forsaking you during whatever it was that you were going through, it is nothing to just say, you know what, God, I know this is you, and I'm moving out in that.
Right. Right.
You know?
The thing is too, is that I feel is that God had seen that I would share the gospel with people and that I didn't fear to do that. So each time he was giving me bigger things, and in the fact that, making the fruits multiply, because, what is it? If he gives you a talent, he wants to see what you can do with that little talent. And if you do something with that little talent, then he's going to give you a bigger talent, so sure.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
So this has been great. This has been great. And I'm so proud of you just, going out and doing what the will of God for your life, and also sharing not only your story, but sharing other people's story through your book and inspiring people. And this book speaks to so many people. It's Inspired Blessings, led by God to inspire the world with love, faith, and hope. And I hope today, my hope for you, my prayer for you today is that you be able to get this. Go to Jean's website and get those daily inspirations that she shares, as well as maybe getting something that really speaks to you and bringing it home. You could catch Jean on YouTube as well as Facebook. But this book...
Yeah, if people can like my Inspired Blessings Facebook, and this way they get the updates of all the things that are going on with that.
Yes. And this book is amazing.
So it's JeanMariePrince.com, PRINCE.com.
JeanMariePrince.com. Thank you, Jean.
I appreciate it.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
And
guest.
I hope that what you heard here today will not only inspire you, but make you get up and say yes to God. Because remember, why settle for no when yes is available? Bye-bye.